I read in your acknowledgments you thanked your husband Steve for reading every draft.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play this clip for my wife so she knows what quality writing spouses need to do. They need to get in there and read every draft. How does that work where you're getting edited without that bleeding over into the next day? Maybe you overreact because the dishes weren't done. But really what we're talking about is your mean notes about my character last night.
Yeah, I like my husband's in the other room. It's not always pretty. Yeah, I mean, there were times where I was like, I just wanted you to say you liked it. Just listen to it and say you liked it. I don't know. I appreciate the sounding board. Our family goes on a lot of, in the past, used to go on a lot of road trips. And so I often would read drafts of the story to my kids and my husband on road trips. Sometimes I'd be writing in the car, and they have had a lot of really good advice. And my husband he's gotten very good at giving good critique and not taking my whining. So when I get upset and offended, he's holds firm, and he's usually right, even though I don't always like what he has to say.
What writer does like to receive every critique?
No.
So other than your family, who else sees the book before? I assume your agent, Victoria Wells Arms, she gets to see it. Before it goes on to Liz Bicknell, how many other folks? Or do you have a critique partners? Or
I don't have critique partners, but I have some good friends who are writers. Esther Ehrlich wrote a book called Nest, and she's become a really good friend of mine, and she read several drafts early on. And there have been a couple other people who have read early drafts. I had some sensitivity readers read for the issue of gay life and AIDS in the 1980s to help me make sure that I was writing realistically and not offensively about that time period and that experience. And other than and a few other friends who saw early drafts. But otherwise, it's kind of a lonely process. I'm really lucky to have an incredible agent. Victoria Wells Arms has read also all of the drafts of these stories and has just been an amazing cheerleader. So I'm really thankful for that.
So Victoria, Liz, if you're listening, which I assume you must be, you are both invited on the show anytime.
And there's one more person is my former agent, Sally Brady, when this book was just starting to get off the ground. And she read some of the earliest drafts years and years ago. So anyway, those people are pretty special to me.
So what does your relationship your working relationship with Liz Bicknell look like after you've gotten the book? You've gone through everything. The family's gone through it. You've got some other people go through it. The thing is perfect. Why is she editing at all?
Well, because it wasn't perfect. It's not perfect. She was the experience of working with her was pretty wonderful. When she took the book, it was clear to me from the first time that I talked to her that she really believed in it, that she really understood the heart of this book, and that what she wanted to do, and I remember her saying this the first time I talked to her on the phone, that she wanted to help me with the texture of the book. She said that the story, in order for the story to succeed, it had to have the right texture. And so most of our work didn't have to do with ripping the book apart or recreating it. It had to do with finding the heart and making sure there was enough joy in the story to balance the sad parts, make sure that things weren't so relentless that the book couldn't keep you smiling. And so a lot of the work I did with Liz had to do with pacing, toning some things down, turning some things up. And she was incredible in helping me to do that. I learned a lot about writing through working with her through this book.
Do you remember offhand approximately how many drafts you went back and forth on?
Not as many of my books. And that's one of the ways I knew that she and I were kind of simpatico in our thinking. There were probably 3 different drafts, maybe 3 or 4 different drafts, but each of them, each of the changes were very deliberate and straightforward. Like in one of the drafts, I worked on the voices of the characters and Junebug's voice to make sure that Junebug had a single way of speaking and thinking throughout the book. And in another draft, we worked on the other adult characters that were caregivers, because both Ziggy and Junebug have parents that can't provide for them in the way they need. And so they needed outside help. Like Ziggy finds Nana Jean, who takes him in, and Junebug finds her Uncle Toby. And so another draft was just devoted to working on those characters. But each time we went through another draft, the book got tighter and tighter.
So how does one refine the voice of a character like Junebug? Who is she 10 or 11?
She's 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Junebug's voice is basically my voice, and that was made it easy in some ways, but harder in some ways too. So sometimes Junebug sounded like author Marcella Pixley, just letting it rip. And those were things that we needed to really shave away and shape. So so we made sure that Junebug was 11, and she's a character who's very she's very observant of her environment, and she has kind of a poetic sensibility about her, and we made sure that that sensibility was the mind of an 11-year-old girl, and a lot of that had to do with taking a lot of language away from the book and cutting a lot of language
that you had carefully poured over and put your soul into paragraph by paragraph.
Yeah, but it's okay, because then what's left is good, you know? It's all right to have too much, as long as your editor doesn't, you know, get sick of you. But if they can help you see your way through that, it's kind of like carving a sculpture, you know, you kind of take away the stuff that you don't need, and then what's left is what's going to make people understand it.
That's like metaphor number 6 or 7 that I'm stealing.
I know.
That's doing great.
That's the stuff we took out of the book.